What inspired you to write The Sex Lives of Puppets, and why puppets?
Yeah, I suppose it's sort of the other way around. I had these puppets, and they weren't working, and we were messing around, and we loved them sort of doing kind of interview style, sort of backstage interviews, and they were very good when they talked about sex.
Yeah, and of course, Blind Summit is a puppet company. So
Yeah.
if you decided to do
Right.
it without them, you wouldn't be doing it with Blind Summit. So so that's a core reason.
Yes, that's why we have the puppets. I didn't.
That's why we have the puppets.
Holiday.
That's the cast. And why, Mark? Why did you choose Sex Lives of Puppets? Well, you had a great title for a start.
Yeah, I think it was a good title, and once we had it, it was sort of irresistible.
Yeah, I agree. I think first of all, we thought, well, it was Mark who brought me in, so that the title was there, and I said many times, that's it now. We just have to create a show around a brilliant title.
You are co-writers and co-directors. How does the collaboration work?
Yeah, it's a fucking nightmare.
I've made sure it is. I've made sure it's difficult. It's been my job to do this.
It's been really good, hasn't it? I mean, it came about because Ben applied to audition, and when he came along, he said, "I know nothing about puppets," and I was sort of blown away by his voice. I think was the thing that I was like, wow. And I had a couple of weeks when I thought, well, let's workshop this. And I sat down with my co-director, and we looked at who'd auditioned. And I said, I want Ben to come, and if he really can't do puppets, we'll do something else. And so that's how we got together. And then the
regret started.
And then the argument started.
I think that the thing that I like about this is that Mark has an immense experience. He's incredibly passionate about what he does. He has a thing in his mind that he wants, and I come from a different world. So the combination of our two skills come together in this, but not without bumping heads. That's for darn sure. But what I love about it is the fact that we have one agenda, and that's to make a great show, and everything clears its way for that. And at the end of the day, that's what happens. But it hasn't stopped us from voicing our opinions strongly.
Well, I think I was talking about this yesterday to someone. I think we agree when we see stuff, like when we try it out, we mostly see the same stuff, and that's the important thing. The journey there is the difficult bit when you're talking about it, and when you're trying to work out what it is.
Yes,
that's really hard, isn't it? And
it is, because we come from different places. So but the proof of it is, what's amazing is when the puppets are there and they're working, it's like pop. And I think for Mark and myself, we both go, oh God, we want that. And so that's the easy part. The getting there, we have different strategies, but there's no question about it. It's Mark's leads in terms of, he knows how a puppet works, and I don't. So I'm learning that. I'm just I'm just holding on like this.
And I think that has a real positive with the cast as well, because I think it's like having two parents rather than one.
Two bickering parents.
But I mean, when we agree, I think that's reassuring, and when we're disagreeing, they're probably disagreeing too. So it's quite a good having those two things.
Now, this might be a slightly mean question, but if you had to choose between writing or directing, which would you choose?
Well, I've changed I've had a long career, gone through from one thing to another as we go through, and so moving from one thing to another has been just what happens in life if you carry on being creative. So I've moved closer to, I do more writing now than performing, which I used to do before. And directing comes on as a sort of a sweetener and an additional thing. And I love variety. If I had nothing else that I had a choice of, I would write. But for me, the thing that really brings life to all the work is to mix. So I can work with dance companies, and I work with physical theater companies and actors and young actors and film and everything else, and I do the whole lot. And so for me, it's the variety that I find exciting. But the thing that can underline it is writing, and it has been for 50 years.
Yeah.
What about you, Mark?
I think I would choose performing. I sort of write and direct in order to perform, I think, because to sort of make and I sort of do them through performing. So I feel a little bit cack-handed at both of them, and that I sort of, I'm
Mark's writing is very, very good. Yeah, there was one of the things that attracted me to the job is that Mark's writing was really excellent. So he's playing down his writing skills, but also an amazing performer. So when that comes up and the two things are working, whether I've led on the writing or Mark has, things can really pop. So it's that's where our combination of skills, I think, work very well.
But it's interesting because we write in opposite ways as well, don't we? In that I write.
We have nothing in common, Mark. Nothing at all.
Atmosphere, and you're very good at saying, but nothing's happening, Mark. You need something to happen. Whereas I write sort of people going up and kind of general vibe.
Yeah, I write as somebody who's doing a Marvel movie. I write instances, and
like a proper writer.
And Mark, thank you very much. And Mark has discovers during his writing. I don't have time for discovery. I've got to crack on. I'm old.
I hope I'm getting better, and you're under your care.
Now, for people like me who only ever sit in the audience, what's one thing that might surprise us about what goes on behind the scenes?
Well, for me, I think it would be the amount of technique involved in puppetry blows my mind completely. When Mark talks in great deal about the technique with the puppeteers, these puppeteers this is their first time working as puppeteers. That was Mark's choice. So for me, the thing that really is astounding is the complexity of the technique to make puppets work. It looks like nothing when they're working. It just looks like they're sitting there talking and they're people. But in reality, to get that focus and concentration working, to get the technique working, where it has that appearance, is such a change of mind and head that it really takes a great deal of skill to do that. And it's not acting, and it's not the puppeteers are not actors, and the puppet isn't acting, and like it's a whole change of psychology. So for me, it's that. What would you think, Mark?
Yeah, that sounds right. I think we agree. Yeah, the really, I think it's very strange puppetry because they're instantly attractive. I think the thing probably people really don't realize is that, particularly if it works, which hopefully it is, they sort of don't realize how limited a puppet is. It just can't move its feet. Someone has to come on and move them. And when you get that right, hopefully if you get that right, the audience doesn't sort of they sort of appreciate it, but but the amount of time that goes into just practical things like saying, oh God, if we're going to move the feet, we need another person, and they need to get on stage, and how do they get on, and yeah, that stuff.
Yeah, and it's worth saying at this point that these are not marionettes with strings. These are puppets where the head is one puppeteer is operating the head and the mouth and doing the voice. Another puppeteer is doing the hands. and the cooperation between those two things. If feet were wanted, a third puppeteer would have to come in to do the feet, and all of them need to work together seamlessly and have a set of rules at work, and that makes that's a lot.
Yeah.
Final question. What is your favourite theatre to watch?
I like a good funeral.
Do it.
I like a good funeral. You know, a good one. No? Is that the wrong? Oh, Mark, you're right. What's your right?
What's my favourite theatre? You don't really watch theatre, do you, Ben? You're always talking about films, basically.
Yeah, my constant reference point always has been, as an actor and a writer, is always film. So when I go back to a reference, the most natural thing is film. It's not theatre. I don't really go to theatre. I don't really read. I just hang out at funerals. I don't really do that stuff. And at the same time, I'm a writer and I write for stage and stuff. So I don't really know. I went to see some theatre recently. God, it was shite. And so we went together, didn't we?
What was it then?
It was poop, and it was disappointing. And I know that that's not all theatre, but yeah. So what about you, Mark? What do you fancy?
Well, I think, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I love theatre, and I think the thing I love is performances. So I just love seeing a great performance, and it doesn't really matter who or what it is. I'm happy to watch a magician, a stand-up, a dancer, and I only need one performance, to sort of save an evening. And I just find that when I see a great performance, it's amazing. And then, and then there's nothing bigger than a massive great show where everything works and everyone's good, an opera or a ballet or a Shakespeare or even a giant puppet show.
Indeed.
When it works, it's magnificent.
Great. I'm going to turn off the recording now.